The only sound was that of their boots on the plank walk and the soft, discordant jangle of Tom's spurs. At last, glancing at O'Brien's profile, the one-armed man said,
"Looking for work?"
"Just passing through is all."
"That's as well. There is no work. Leastways, not in these parts. You heard about the hoof and mouth, I guess?"
"Some."
"Well, it finished things here," Tom growled bitterly. "Cut the cattle business stone dead, and just when I thought I'd set down roots, become a man of means."
"Too bad." Tom nodded absently.
"You ever seen what it can do, the disease?" he asked.
"I've seen it," said O'Brien. "It isn't pretty." That was an understatement, because it was so highly contagious, Hoof and Mouth could scythe through a territory faster than greased lightning, and in almost less time than it took to tell, pretty much any critter in its path, cattle, swine, deer, antelope, found itself condemned to a lingering death. Unable to eat for the pus-filled blisters around their mouths, unable to walk for the skin damage to their hooves, udders, and teats, all its victims could do was smack their lips endlessly in a vain attempt to loosen the strings of saliva that hung there in long, glutinous cords, and wait for the suffering to end. Faced with such an aggressive infection, there wasn't a whole lot a man could do save slaughter his stock and burn the bodies, and watch his livelihood, what there'd been of it, go up in smoke. But even that wasn't the worst of it, because those cattle who survived the disease were left as little more than scrawny bags of bones, more dead than alive. They gave less and less milk, and any calves they were carrying had to be aborted. Strictly enforced quarantine statutes saw to that. Statutes that could and did remain in force for months, if not a year or more, until the territory was declared disease-free again. Without warning, Tom suddenly came to a halt.
"Remember my brother Al?"
he rasped. Sucking in a breath, O'Brien thought, "Here it comes," and prepared to haul iron. "I remember Al," he replied slowly. But Tom made no move toward his own weapon. He just said,
"We figured to settle hereabouts, him and me. Of course, that was a while ago, and it was good country then. Had big plans, me and Al, till it all went sour for us."
Suddenly he struck out, smashing his left fist into a nearby porch with such force that O'Brien winced.
"Damn the luck,"
Tom whispered, his jagged, ill-kept teeth clamping hard. A long 20 seconds passed before he glanced down at his hand and saw with mild surprise that he'd split the knuckles. Slowly he brought them to his mouth so that he could taste the blood that came oozing to the surface, like so many red pearls. Watching him, O'Brien wondered if he should tell Tom what had become of his brother and take his chances. But even as he made to do just that, Grandy used his blood-smeared hand to gesture further along the street.
"There's Gwendolyn's," he said. "Get yourself fed and then get yourself the hell out of this territory. There's nothing here for you save misery."
O'Brien nodded. "I'll remember that."
"Make sure you do,"
grated Tom, and all at once there was nothing even remotely sociable left in him. He was all rattles now, cold and flat, mean and deadly.
"I got nothing against you, Brian," he rasped. "Hardly even know you, when it boils down to it, but I know what you are. You're a hired gun, and you showing up here in this town at this time, that irks me considerable."
O'Brien's eyes narrowed. "Why should it do that?" he asked innocently.
"'Cause I've had my share of trouble these past few months, and I don't aim to have no more of it."
Pfft. Tom spat in reply, giving his hand an impatient flick to rid it of the last of the blood.
"Still, I'm a cautious man. I don't take risks if I can help it. So here's what we'll do. First light tomorrow, you get the hell out of Elkhorn, you don't come back, 'cause if you do, me and you might just get to butting heads. And you won't like that, O'Brien. My word on it."
O'Brien responded with a thin smile of his own. "Go easy, Tom," he advised. "You might not find it all that pleasant yourself." A muscle in Tom's pale face twitched briefly.
"Well, you've been warned," he growled. "Show some sense and stay warned. You'll live a whole heap longer if you do."
And with that, he turned on his heel and started back the way he'd come, leaving O'Brien to watch him go and wonder just what in the hell that little exchange had really been about. Something involving Jane Farrow and her sister? That much was certain, but what? And where did Calder, Dr. Calder that was, fit into it all? Unable to answer either question, he shook his head and turned towards the restaurant. But with memories of the hoof and mouth still clear in his mind, as well as the sure and certain knowledge that he was going to end up locking horns with Tom Grandy, whether he wanted to or not, he realized that his appetite had temporarily deserted.